Hey guys, what's going on today? Welcome to the OT for Life podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Putt, and I'm an occupational therapist who specializes in early intervention. I've got a super special episode for you today, and one that I know you all have been waiting for. I launched this podcast back in October of 2018, and by now I have released 37 fantastic episodes, if I do say so myself. I have brought on some amazing guests and covered a wide range of topics, from pediatric occupational therapy to animal-assisted therapy, using evidence in practice, the business side of OT, travel therapy and international volunteer work, the importance of collaboration with other professionals like physical therapists, inclusion, and I even released a fieldwork mini-series, as well as the first steps to becoming an occupational therapist. That's covered a lot of ground. But I really haven't gone into much detail about who I am and what this podcast is all about. So that's why I'm here today. I want to use today's episode for you to get to know me a little better and also understand my why. So let's peel back the curtain on my story and OT journey, as well as the how and the why of the OT for Life podcast. If you're interested in occupational therapy, this is the place for you. This show aims to explore our profession by sharing who we are and what we do. Because for us, occupational therapy is more than just a job. Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to OT for Life. Okay, so the first question that I get when people hear that I started an occupational therapy podcast is, why did you do it? Well, I did it for many reasons. First off, advocacy. I feel that occupational therapy is an undervalued profession, and a lot of people still don't know what it is and what we actually do. When I was in OT school, and even as a new practitioner, most people that I talked with about my career had no idea what OT was. I constantly found myself explaining what the profession was and giving my OT elevator speech. While over the years, I feel like more and more people are hearing about it and at least having a little familiarity with occupational therapy, but I still feel like the profession is a mystery to many. And even if people have heard about it, their view tends to be limited, thinking that we only work in one capacity or another. So first off, I want to advocate for our profession by sharing who we are and the broad scope of what we can do. Secondly, I know that there are so many OTs and OT students out there that are up to amazing things within their professional lives, and I want to provide a platform to share these stories for the world to hear. I want to inspire occupational therapists to follow their passions, reach their dreams, and live their best lives. But you might be asking, why specifically a podcast? As I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I currently work in early intervention, working with kiddos from birth to 3 years of age, and my services are provided within the client's houses. So pretty much that means I drive a lot. Oh, and I live in Los Angeles, California. So not only do I spend all day in the car, I also spend all day sitting in LA traffic. That means I have a lot of time in the car. Now, I used to be a music person. I was big into country, rap, rock, you name it, I listened to it. I was one of those people that would literally create individual playlists for each day. So I always had good tunes while I was cruising the streets. Then sometime around 2 years ago, I think, I got introduced to podcasts. And yeah, let's just say that almost instantly changed my life, and for the better. I started listening to all sorts of podcasts, ranging from ones on entrepreneurship to personal finance to real estate. And then I stumbled upon a few physical therapy podcasts. I was hooked. I loved the information that I was getting, the stories I was hearing. And to be honest, they were so motivating. They challenged me and they pushed me to make changes in my life and ultimately to be a better person. My day in and day out drive time suddenly became enlightening, and I couldn't wait to get back in the car after a session to finish the episode that I was listening to. Some days, to be completely honest with you guys, I'd say I go through 8 to 10 episodes, and I just can't seem to get enough. Then one day, I had the idea to look and see if there were any occupational therapy podcasts out there. I mean, if there are physical therapy podcasts, there must be some occupational therapy podcasts, right? I scoured the internet, and my search came up pretty empty. There were a handful of brilliant shows out there already. A big shout out to Seniors Flourish, Occupied, and the OT Schoolhouse podcast. And I immediately started listening to them. But I was shocked to see that there weren't all that many OT podcasts. Meanwhile, I had gotten more and more involved with advocating for the profession of occupational therapy by attending state, national, and international conferences, as well as being a fieldwork educator for current occupational therapy students and a mentor to pre-OT students. Through this, I started meeting all sorts of fascinating people with amazing stories about their involvement within the field of occupational therapy and how OT has impacted their lives for the better. So being that I had become a little bit of a podcast junkie, not gonna lie, and coupled with the fact that I feel that our profession isn't as recognized as it should be, as well as meeting so many fantastic people, and that there weren't a lot of OT podcasts out there, I figured, why not start one myself? It would be a fun challenge. I say challenge because public speaking has never been a strong suit of mine. Growing up, I was a kid that didn't talk because I was so shy. I didn't do well in large groups, and I hated being put on the spot. I remember having to give speeches in school, and I was literally just a ball of nerves. I would get so nervous that my whole body would shake. That would cause my papers to shake, my voice to shake. It was bad. No, really, it was really bad. In my adult life, I've worked really hard to combat my underlying shyness, and fortunately, most people that I meet now can't even believe it when I say that I used to be as shy as I was. So when the idea of starting the podcast entered my mind, I figured it would be one more way to challenge and push myself even more outside of my comfort zone than I already have. I tell you all of this because I want you to know that starting a podcast wasn't an easy task for me. It took a lot of work for me to overcome my shyness to start recording, and then to overcome my hesitancy to actually release the podcast into the world. I drug my feet for months before actually pressing the go button on my first episode. I worried what people would think about me and my show. I worried that nobody would listen. I worried that I wouldn't have anything good to say. I worried, and I worried some more. But with the help of some friends, and you all know who you are, I ultimately faced my fears and put my show out there. And I'm so glad that I did. This whole experience has been wonderful. I've met so many amazing people, many of which who have become great friends. I've learned so much about myself, as well as the profession as a whole, and I've gained so many new skills. As for a little bit more about me, I've been a licensed occupational therapist since 2009. As of this recording, that's a whole 10 years that I have been in this magnificent profession. It is absolutely crazy to say that because OT school doesn't seem that far away. But then again, a whole lot has happened in the past decade. Fresh out of school, I worked at a private pediatric clinic for about 4 years, providing services in schools, in the clinic, and in the clients' houses. Then I became an independent contractor, doing only clinic and home-based practice. Throughout this time, I worked with children ranging from birth to 18 years of age. Then, in 2015, I got the crazy idea to start my own private practice. And at that moment, only focus on early intervention. And I honed in on providing therapy only within the child's natural environment. I absolutely love the work that I do and the flexibility of having my own practice. But how did I stumble into this profession in the first place? Well, even before I knew what occupational therapy was, I always had a passion for pediatrics. I worked as a paraeducator and then as a behavior therapist for a local school district. One day, one of the aides in my classroom mentioned that I would make a great OT. I remember that moment so vividly because I didn't even know what OT was. Fortunately for me, one of my kiddos that I was working with at the time received occupational therapy, so I decided to tag along with him to his next session. Together, we walked down to the OT room, and both of our eyes lit up as soon as we opened the door. I remember seeing all the fun equipment, including the ball pit, scooter board ramp, lots of different swings, and then I met Francesca, the OT who started it all for me. She was so passionate about the profession and simply loved her job. I couldn't help to be inspired and immediately knew that this profession was for me. I actually had the pleasure of interviewing Francesca on the podcast a few episodes ago. So if you want to hear more about this story and her OT journey, head over to episode 25 titled The Power of Play in Clinic-Based Therapy. After work that day, I went home and immediately started researching OT programs. I then finished up any prerequisites that I needed and began my application process. Less than 12 months later, I was starting the Masters of Occupational Therapy program at the University of Southern California. Quite often, I find myself in awe of how fortunate I am to have stumbled upon this profession and how I was immediately drawn to it. I feel so lucky to have a job and a career that I am so passionate about And for those of you that know me, you know that I am not shy in sharing my love for this profession. In addition to my passion for early intervention, I also love mentoring and supervising fieldwork students. I think by now I have mentored over 50 students, and to be honest, I love the energy and the passion that they bring to my practice. I get so much value out of sharing my love for the profession, and I also love hearing all about their amazing ideas, what they have accomplished so far, and what they hope to accomplish in their OT careers. I get so much joy out of sharing my journey and my experiences, but also learning from them and being a part of their OT journey. If any of my students are listening to this now, I thank you and continue to be inspired by you every day. Another big passion of mine is travel. I'm a huge traveler, both in the US and internationally. I absolutely love seeing new places, learning about new cultures, languages, and trying all sorts of delicious foods. Over the past few years, I started combining my passion for travel with my love for the OT profession and started volunteering internationally, helping places that have little or no access to occupational therapy. So far, I've partnered with organizations across the world, including places in Ecuador, Peru, Cambodia, and Honduras. And I love meeting OTs from different places. It is just so cool connecting with like-minded people from all across the globe. Now, some of you might be asking, what's with the name of the podcast? It all started when I was a brand new grad, and I was attending a continuing education course with a few of my colleagues. The presenter, at one point, went off on this long, inspirational tangent, and at the end of her rant, one of my coworkers stood up and yelled, "OT for life!" Immediately, the whole place erupted with cheer. And since then, it's pretty much become my mantra. Even before hashtags were a thing, my coworkers and I would always just throw out OT for life as if it was a greeting or a signing off. Hey, see you tomorrow. OT for life. And for me, occupational therapy isn't just a job. It's given me a sense of purpose and fulfillment to my life, to the lives of my clients, my students, and colleagues. It's impossible for me to turn off my OT brain. It's always on, even when I'm not, quote unquote, on the clock. I look at the world differently in my personal life and while out in the community. For me, occupational therapy is life. But why is life spelled with a Y? Because OT is the Y of life. See what I did there? Okay. I know that's cheesy, but it's true. And what about the vision of this podcast? My vision for this podcast is to highlight who we are as occupational therapists and what we do to really bring awareness of and advocate for our profession. I aim to share stories and the journeys of practitioners and students in the field by discussing anything and everything occupational therapy. Being an OT working in pediatrics, and specifically in early intervention, doesn't mean that peds is all I'm going to be talking about. I'll be bringing on guests from all walks of OT life. There are so many therapists doing fantastic things, and I want to share their stories with the rest of the OT community and the world. Some episodes will be interviews with guests. Some, like today's, will just be me. And other times I'll have special bonus episodes where I bring on multiple guests to discuss various topics, or a mini-series where we follow the same guests over a period of time. I hope to make this podcast informative and fun, and strive to encourage and inspire those of us in or connected to the field of occupational therapy. I welcome engagement from the OT community, so please contact me if you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, guests, or topics. I've absolutely loved everything that I've done so far, and I'm really looking forward for what's next to come. I hope today's episode gave you a little perspective about me, my OT journey, my passions, and the reason for starting this whole podcast in the first place. I am so honored to get to do this each week and cannot thank you enough for tuning in and listening. Also, if you want to check out other OT podcasts, head on over to www.otpodcast.com and see the wonderful list of other shows done by occupational therapists. Props to Brock Cook over at the Occupied Podcast for putting that all together. I know Brock and many others of the OT podcasters and can definitely say that they put out some amazing content. If you're still listening now at the end of this episode, you're a super fan, sticking it out with me until the end. And to that I say thank you. Thank you for being here and listening. Thanks for your comments and feedback. They're greatly, greatly appreciated. And with that, I also wanted to give you an ask, just one ask. I ask that if you get value from this show, to please share it with a friend. Let more people know about this show and any of the other OT podcasts that you listen to. Let's get occupational therapy even more on the map and show the distinct value of our profession. Let's continue to advocate for occupational therapy and get that seat at the table. All right, that's it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have any questions, hit me up on the socials. I'll catch you next week on the OT for Life podcast. Hey, before you go, I just wanted to say thanks for listening to today's episode. If you want to further the discussion, go to our website, otforlife.com, and join our Facebook group. If you like us, here are 3 easy ways to let us know. 1, share our podcast with a friend, colleague, or anyone interested in occupational therapy. 2, leave us a review on iTunes or anywhere this podcast is found. 3, subscribe to us so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time, OT for Lifers. As well as so that's what ranging from ones on church. I then finished up any prereqs. I then finished up I think I blah blah. Okay, let's start that over. Over the past few years, Take 2 or 3. Now I can't remember. But why is light? Bleh. But why is light? Bleh. And strive to encourage and can't talk.